just gonna go out and say it. Scott Buck is the Zack Snyder of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Greetings fanboys and fangirls, I'm ERod and I'm the Blockbuster Buster, and the day is finally here. The day that I hoped would never come. The day that I bust a Marvel Cinematic Universe property. It all started in 2014. The Marvel Cinematic franchise had reached a higher level of success, thanks to the release of The Avengers and the first Guardians of the Galaxy movie. So a press event was organized to reveal what was in store for the future of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Kevin Feige addressed a crowd of eager fans and attentive reporters, and made one crowd-pleasing announcement after the other. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, the crowd cheered. Doctor Strange, the crowd cheered. Black Panther, the crowd cheered. Captain Marvel, the crowd cheered. The Inhumans, the crowd murmured in confusion. Now, if you're one of those individuals that doesn't remember that lukewarm reception, that's because they covered it up with this.
I'm having buyer's remorse on that Serpent Society subtitle for Captain America 3. It feels like there must be a better title somewhere.
Announcing what was destined to be the biggest movie of 2016, I'm not surprised that in the vast sea of geekgasms, people forgot that Phase 3 of the Marvel Cinematic Universe was supposed to include a movie based on one of Marvel's least popular franchises. Also, due to the fact that Marvel had proven that they could turn obscure properties like Guardians and Ant-Man into blockbuster franchises, made a lot of MCU fans give them the benefit of the doubt. However, even then, a lot of hardcore fans like myself still felt a bit of trepidation towards this decision. Why? I'll explain. While the Inhumans were created by Jack Kirby, the greatest comic book creator of all time, they were not designed to be protagonists. The Inhumans were always supporting players or pseudo-antagonists at best, and the very few Marvel stories where they had a central role were always miniseries or event comics, as the Inhumans are generally always portrayed as powerful godlike beings that rule over an advanced society that lives apart from us lowly humans. So in a comic book brand that defines itself by having grounded characters that anyone can relate to, the Inhumans don't truly fit into those prerequisites of your standard Marvel character. And it was fairly obvious that the guys at Marvel were painfully aware of this, as they desperately tried to forcefully make these characters cool in the ensuing years. First, they tried introducing them through their TV shows, which further cemented their status as momentary supporting characters and nothing more. And then, they stupidly tried to replace the insanely popular mutants from the X-Men franchise with the Inhumans. Yeah, that's never gonna happen. The reason the X-Men are so popular is that anyone can understand being discriminated against, so it's easy to sympathize with mutants. Again, the Inhumans are royalty, and they live on a highly advanced secluded city. So, yeah, it's a little hard to sympathize with that. And the biggest difference between the Inhumans, and this is the important one, is that while mutants are born with their powers and deformities, Inhumans can choose whether they want them or not. Yup. While mutants have absolutely no choice on the matter and have to live with whatever blessing or curse nature bestows upon them, the Inhumans can choose whether or not they want to go through these significant physical changes by exposing themselves to Terrigen Mist. Now, even though an Inhuman runs the risk of ending up with no powers and just being stuck with a freakish deformity for the rest of his life, he still has the choice as to whether or not he wants to take that gamble. So no, the Inhumans are nothing like mutants. And even though they failed at making these characters appealing to mainstream audiences, Marvel was still hell-bent in making a movie solely based on these characters. Until two very unprecedented things happened. The first was that after spending a few years in development hell, the Ant-Man movie turned out to be a pretty moderate hit, which prompted Marvel to add its sequel to its release slate and push the Inhumans further down in their schedule. And then, the unthinkable happened.
Underoos!
Marvel struck a deal with Sony Pictures to have co-ownership of Spider-Man. So Marvel had to once again make room in their schedule for a new series of Spider-Man movies. Something had to go, and the Inhumans drew the proverbial short straw. So the Inhumans movie was cancelled indefinitely, and no one seemed to care. As far as we knew, this was just one of many cancelled fanboy films. Until 2016, when Marvel Television head honcho Jeff Loeb announced that the Inhumans were back as a show and a movie. You see, the pilot episode was scheduled to premiere in theaters in IMAX, and then as a series on ABC just a few weeks later. But that's not the only bit of good news, as the showrunner for this wonderful program was going to be Scott Buck, the same guy in charge of the first season of Iron Fist, the only one of the Marvel Netflix shows that suck big sweaty gonads. Ugh. Oh god, this is gonna hurt. Now, before we jump into this, one quick disclaimer. The footage you will see in this video is actually from the network broadcast, hence the network idents and adverts. So it will not have the visual quality of the IMAX version. But trust me when I say that in no way will change the quality of the content that Marvel Entertainment felt worthy of charging you $15 to see in IMAX theaters. So, without further ado, here's the insidiously irritating indignation known as the Inhumans. So our movie begins on Oahu, Hawaii, where a group of evil gun-toting humans chase after an Inhuman girl. And right away we have our first problem. They don't show you the Inhumans' origin. Instead, they just throw you into the middle of the action, which may work for some movies, but in the case of a property like the Inhumans, which has a very intricate sci-fi backstory, it is vital that you deliver some exposition to facilitate the audience's understanding. So yeah, no Lord of the Rings flashback or a handy-dandy opening sequence with a voiceover by Patrick Stewart. We just dive right into the middle of the conflict without explanation. Now, if you were among the fortunate few who either read the comic or watched the first few seasons of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., you'd be okay. But if you walked into this completely fresh without knowing anything about the Inhumans, the only two things you were going to understand are Jack and shit, and Jack left town. Luckily, the Inhuman girl runs into one of our main characters, royal family member Triton, who is a badass ultra-agile merman who, oh my god, he looks like crap. Which brings me to my second problem with this show/movie. Everything looks cheap as shit. At a day and age where most primetime shows look like movies, it is simply ludicrous that the most successful multimedia franchise of today would put out a show where one of its main characters looks like something a fan made, as opposed to a multi-million-dollar studio. Anyway, let's learn more about this Inhuman girl. She's not a member of the royal family, so I assume she's supposed to be the audience surrogate, the character that regular Joes like you and me can relate to. The surrogate also helps to facilitate the exposition so we can understand the show better, and we can meet the Inhumans through her, and who knows, she might help us to sympathize with these unpopular characters. Never mind. So the trigger-happy Terrans shoot Triton and watch as he falls off a cliff and into the ocean. Are we supposed to think that he might be dead? First of all, they gave him his own character poster, so I doubt they would spend marketing dollars on a character they were gonna kill off right away. And secondly, he's a merman and he fell into the ocean. That's like being worried about the Human Torch after he got pushed into a burning building. And thus, we straight cut from that ultra-dramatic scene to the king of the Inhumans, Black Bolt, boning his supermodel wife in his castle. Yeah, these Inhumans are so easy to relate to. I am totally dressing up like Black Bolt for Halloween. So yes, this is King Black Bolt, the most powerful of the Inhumans. He has many superhuman abilities, but the main one you should be familiar with is his quasi-sonic scream. powerful enough to destroy planets at full blast, and sensitive enough to kill anyone within range with just a mere whisper. For this reason, Black Bolt must remain silent at all times. His wife Medusa can physically manipulate her hair like super strong tentacles. And I have to admit, the effect looks pretty cool. The king and queen get called away to fulfill their daily duties, and we finally get to see their costumes, which look little to nothing like their comic book counterparts. But I already established that the show is cheap, so I'll spare you the rant on that. And after a VFX tracking shot, it is revealed that their highly advanced city of Atalan is located under an invisible force field on the moon. Alright, fine, I'll admit it. That's a pretty cool reveal. But then they mess it up by showing us the opening sequence. What the hell? Did one of the Marvel interns make this on Photoshop? This looks awful. I can say with unshakable confidence that my opening sequence is better than this. My opening sequence to my crappy web show is better than a Marvel show. That should never happen! And thus we meet the rest of the Inhuman royal family. Black Bolt's brother, Maximus, who has no powers and the charisma of a piece of driftwood.
We do nothing. Brother, that's your strategy for everything.
I'm sorry, did he say something important? No? Okay. Gorgon, the cloven-footed head of security, who is a total dumbass.
This is the live feed that was going down to Earth.
What's that?
The little baby car?
No, what's that above it?
My hoof.
If the humans on Earth see this...
Nobody is gonna know that that's a hoof.
It looks like a hoof.
Yeah, that's definitely the guy that I wouldn't trust with my safety. Then there's Kornak, the super intelligent royal advisor with the ability to predict all of his opponent's movements as well as sensing their weak points. He can also go from mildly annoying to an intolerable asshole in 6.5 seconds.
2.5 days. First day I'd be captivated by your beauty. Oh, the fun we'd have. Second day, it would start to bother me that you're a servant. And then I discover that you have dependency issues. You chew with your mouth open. And by the second afternoon, I'd want to kill you. It's sad, but true.
What an asshole!
And Medusa's sister, Princess Crystal, who has the power to control the elements, as well as the incredible ability of making Kristen Stewart look like a master thespian.
Never. You make me sick. You're just a human.
Oh, could we make her the mute one instead of Black Bolt? So these are our heroes. Mute, stuck up, jerk, idiot, and flighty. Thankfully, there is one character that redeems this cast, and that is the royal family pet, Lockjaw, a giant teleporting bulldog.
The Grand Hall.
Okay, that's fucking awesome. So after a Terrigenesis ceremony in which one of the recipients got butterfly wings and the other got visions of the future, a bystander overtly remarks to the young Inhumans that if they don't get powers during Terrigenesis, they are sentenced to a life of servitude as mine workers. Wait, what? At the same time, Black Bolt is planning to bring all the newly discovered Inhumans from Earth to live up on the moon with them, even though they do not have the resources to sustain an increase in population. Maximus instead suggests that they should instead go down to Earth and establish a new colony there. Okay? Let me see if I understand this correctly. If you're an Inhuman, but Terrigenesis doesn't give you powers, you spend the rest of your life working in the mines. And instead of doing anything to improve the lives of the people he is ruling over, Black Bolt is just inviting more strangers to live with them, who don't have to work in the mines because they got powers by accident. Are we sure that Black Bolt is supposed to be the good guy here? Maximus is right. They should go to Earth and establish a new colony there. Why doesn't anybody listen to him?
But his life like some of yours, is only like this because of this place. Our finite kingdom forces us into a strict caste system.
Oh yeah, that's why. Shortly after the Pterogenesis ceremony, Mr. Projector Head shows the royal family perfectly edited footage of Triton's alleged death. Apparently, Black Bolt had sent him to Earth to retrieve all the new Inhumans. Out of all the Inhumans that you could have sent to Earth to infiltrate humanity and retrieve new Inhumans, you sent Triton. Who wrote this? And if you need further reason to question Black Bolt's leadership skills, he then sends Gorgon to Earth to check if Triton is truly dead. Okay? There are several things wrong with this. Number one, he's a moron. Number two, why would an Inhuman need a gun? Number three, he's a moron. Number four, Gorgon is the chief of security. Doesn't Black Bolt have somebody more expendable to send down to Earth? And number five, and this is the important one, he's a moron! So back on Earth, Gorgon's teleportation is detected by the hottest scientist ever. And hold on, these are the same NASA scientists who were monitoring the moon rover earlier. And they're running their operation from an empty warehouse? God damn, this show is cheap. Anyway, Dr. Good and Sexy brings the moon rover picture of Gorgon's hoof and the evidence of his teleportation to her boss. For the record, this is the second time in just 30 minutes that Gorgon, the chief of security, has exposed the existence of the Inhumans. Who was the other choice for chief of security? Fred Fredberger? Whoa! So, Dr. Good and Sexy's boss takes a look at the evidence of the Inhuman's existence, treats her like she's insane, and then suspends her for a few weeks. Okay, stop. Just stop. Believe it or not, this is actually the second time in a Scott Buck Marvel show where somebody points out something weird and they are treated like they're insane. In Iron Fist, Danny Rand both tells and demonstrates to people that he is the Iron Fist, but still gets tossed into an insane asylum. Here, this woman has scientific evidence that there is a being living on the moon and that he traveled to Earth, and she gets suspended from her job? Hey, newsflash, Buck, that doesn't work in the Marvel Cinematic Universe! This is the same place where a hole opened up in the sky and aliens poured out. This is the same place where a robot made a whole city fly up in the air. Skepticism no longer makes sense in this universe. It's like the people that made this show didn't know what franchise they were working on. And thus we get to the part of the story where Maximus stages a coup and violently takes over the kingdom. But first, allow me to take some time to teach you a writing term. The Inciting Incident. This is when a hero or villain experiences a traumatic event that prompts said character to take action. For example, in Star Wars, Luke Skywalker's inciting incident is when he finds his Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru dead, as this is the moment when he makes the decision to join the rebellion and fight the Empire. Would you care to guess what is the inciting incident that inspires Maximus to betray his family and take over the kingdom?
Nothing! Absolutely nothing!
He went from disagreeing with his brother to macking on his sister-in-law to full-on trying to take over the kingdom and murder his family in a matter of scenes, without rhyme or reason. Guys, the Care Bears movie's written better than this. And sadly, that's not a joke. So, systematically, Maximus attempts to capture all the members of the royal family. In one of his very few moments of true intelligence, he opts to cut off Medusa's hair. With plain, regular, electric clippers he probably bought at Walgreens. Ugh, jeez, reviewing this thing is exhausting. Where do I even begin with this scene? Firstly, the Inhumans are a highly advanced society. They would have something way better than clippers to cut hair. And on top of that, Medusa's hair is super strong. It would take something as strong as Wolverine's claws to cut it, or as powerful as Iron Man's unibeam to burn it. But the part that I find the most infuriating about this is that this is just a cheap, lame excuse to save special effects money animating Medusa's hair.
Lame.
But apparently Medusa's hair was the only thing that Maximus had any countermeasures for, as he completely forgot about Lockjaw, who goes around teleporting each of the members of the royal family down to Earth, except for Crystal.
Lockjaw, take me to Black Bolt and the others. No. Lockjaw.
But to be perfectly honest, who cares? The rest of this god-awful movie is just a series of scenes of the royal family forgetting how their powers work. Gorgon just walks into the ocean looking for Triton, only to have his hooves weigh him down as he nearly drowns, until some surfer dudes save him. Did I mention the guy's a moron? Karnak, whose power is to sense weak points, fails to sense the weak point on the mountain that he was climbing, and falls. But the one that takes the cake is Black Bolt, who was beaten and arrested by just regular police officers after shoplifting some new clothes. Black Bolt fought and defeated the Hulk by himself. Also, he can fly. He could have just flown away, but the people who made this obviously didn't care, so why should I? Meanwhile, Maximus locates Medusa, so he sends one of his hench girls to kill her. Wait, they knocked out Lockjaw earlier. How exactly is she gonna teleport to Earth?
Legends of the Hidden Temple.
Okay, that was pretty cool too. But what truly matters about this scene is that finally, after over an hour of bullshit, we're finally going to get to see two Inhumans fight. This should be awesome.
Traitor!
Wow, I've seen better fight choreography in fan films.
I'd prefer to bring you back alive. You tell me if that's possible.
I don't know what's more shocking, that this was as awful as it is, or that I'm still surprised by the lack of quality. So after that underwhelming nonsense, the Inhumans IMAX experience ends. I am not kidding. They do a quick montage of all the characters being lame at what they do. The hench girl turns out to still be alive, no one in the audience cares, and they roll the credits. So yeah, this wasn't a movie or even a standalone episode of a TV show. It was just the first episode of a mini-series. Meaning, I paid $15 to see an hour and a half of exposition. And if anybody at Marvel is watching, know that I want my money back. Ugh, I am so mad I want to break something, but this hasn't come out on DVD yet, so I can't destroy that. I have an idea. Suck on that, Buck. So yeah, the rumors are true. This is the absolute worst thing that Marvel has produced thus far. Even worse than Agent Carter. At least Agent Carter had good characters that I was emotionally invested in. The characters in the Inhumans are just awful, which is sad because they managed to wrangle a very talented cast. But there's just not much that they could do with the material that they were given. So their collective talents were just wasted. The best part, strangely enough, is Lockjaw, but due to budgetary constraints, he is barely in this at all. And I really want to bust this abominable thing. But it wouldn't be fair to do so without checking out the rest of the story, so, and I'm probably gonna regret saying this, I'm going to check out the rest of the miniseries before I make my final judgment. But if this pilot was any indication, it's only a matter of time before I put the hammer to it. To be continued.